So I have a bit of a play. Not sure how well you can see that, but this is definitely got play to it. It's not making a whole bunch of noise, but it's definitely, whenever I brake or accelerate, I can feel it moving, and it definitely has quite a bit of play to it. Say half an inch maybe. I can't tell if you can see that or not. Yeah, so what I'm going to do is pull all this off and replace that bearing. Alright, so I loosened up the axle nut and the lug nuts. Then I raised it up, threw it on some jack stands. Now I'm going to get the tire off of here. Alright, so now that I got that off, next I'm going to be taking off the brake line holder, and then the brake caliper itself, and the brackets. We'll get to that. Alright, so there's these two tins, took them off, put them back in there. I got this one 12 millimeter bolt, pulls out of there. And that obviously will lift up your, free up your caliper to move it up, at which point you can slide it out off of the caliper braking, and then find some place to set it, or find some place to tie it off. That's what I'm going to do now. That's up next. We got the two 17 millimeter caliper bolts here and here. Let's break those guys and take them off. After you remove those two caliper bolts in the rear, this bracket should slide right off, at which point you should be able to just pull this guy right off. Unless you have some the factory screws, which just basically hold this in place until you get the lug nuts on, but you don't need to have those back in there. Doesn't look like too crazy of any warpage, no cracks or anything, so I think I'm doing all right. What you call that, a crack? I doubt it, but whatever. Moving along. Here's my problem. It's definitely loose and fidgety. So, alright. That's the next thing, is I'm going to be taking off the tie rod. I'm going to get rid of the pins that I have in here for these guys. I'm going to take off the castle nuts and pull those off, and then pull the two 10 millimeters here and pull out the pull the knuckle off of this guy. Yeah, I'm basically just going to pull this whole thing out. So I got that castle nut off there, got the tie rod off here, got it separated from the ball joint, so now should, with any luck, yeah, pop right off. That is a very strange color to be seen. Bright red. Huh. Let's do a little bit of quick research, see if there's anything out there on this, because that is goofy. Alright. Yeah, buddy. So, now, next, get rid of the dust shield. And pound this sucker. Just pound it out. Grab a socket. Hit it up. Alright, so now that I've got this arm off, I'm going to use some jack stands. I got this idea from Justin Sane off Boost Inside. Put this on here, grab a socket that fits perfectly on the hub ring and not. See, this one is too big. It doesn't quite, it kind of touches the bearing. You want something that's just going to hit the hub. So I have this one, which is a 1 1/8 inch. That fits perfectly on the hub. So I'm going to go ahead and brace it with these jack stands next to Boost Inside for the idea, and then knock that out. Alright, so mine was so bad that half the bearing stayed on, the other half the bearing stayed in, but then when I was pulling my socket out, the other half of the bearing got stuck to the socket, pulled right out as well. So, yeah. So what's up next here is I'm going to pull this circlip, pull those together, pull that thing off, and then pull the whole bearing out of there. Alright, so knock this guy out of here. pulled out good. Looking at it, you can see where the plate in the tire was coming from. So as that is nice enough to, some parts it comes out more than others, but you can see that's where the so your whole tire is flopping around like that. Not good, not good. So now that I got the old one out, I'm getting the new one back in. Just laid it on top of there, and I'm using the old bearing and holding it and just lightly tapping, just going around and around and around, just over and over again. I've probably gone around 15-20 times light tapping, and I've got it about maybe a third of the way in so far. So what you want to do is keep the pressure on the outside edge, not this plastic or rubber inner piece, definitely not the center piece. You want to keep it all on the outside edge. That's why I'm using the old bearing, matching it up, holding it. Got a socket under here, keep this nice and level, and just lightly tapping it, going around and around and around, nice and evenly settling it. Alright, so just took a couple minutes, got this guy all the way in. What you're trying to do is make sure that it's nice and flush in the back, for sure. Then make sure you have enough room to get the stir clip in. Is this guy. Use this and compress it and shove it in there and let go, and it clips back in. But you can see the little ring where it goes in there. So that's my next step. Alright, so we got our stir clips back in there. Now I gotta get the hub and get this guy off there. I'm gonna try a bearing puller or something before I have to try and cut it off. Anything before I cut it off. But the main point is not to scratch or mess up the hub at all. So I tried a couple different things. Nothing was really working for me. So what I'm going to do is just take one Dremel and kind of come at it at an angle kind of like this, and try and just weaken it, not hit the hub like at all, but just kind of come in at like an angle of attack. And then once I get a nice little wedge in there, I'm going to hit it up with the chisel and just pop it, and it should just pop out before. I've done it before, so hopefully it'll work the same. As you can see, the angle I came at it on got really nice and close. It still hasn't gone all the way through. Wish it would focus, but whatever. So yeah, now I'm gonna pop it with the chisel and see what happens. So I got it in there, and as soon as I put the chisel in there, you can see right in the middle of the shiny part of the cut, there's a crack there. As soon as I put the chisel in there, it just cracked, and then now it just kind of slides around or whatnot. But yeah, I figured right before I pulled it off, it's just gonna pop right off there. So I figured I'd show you the angle of attack I went. See, it came in at a slight angle, and then yeah. So it just popped off. Wanted to show you how close I got there to the inside. I never actually penetrated it. That, I believe, is just a chunk. Well, maybe I did penetrate it a little bit. That one up there is a chisel mark, but right in the center there you can see those two little lines. I think that's where I tapped the inside a little bit. Other than that, good to go. So I'm going to clean this guy up, run some sandpaper over it. See if I can't start getting it back into the axle again. So before I hit it up with some sandpaper, I just cleaned it off, and I just wanted to show all the grooves and markings that the bad bearing left. If I knew it was going to look like this, I would have just bought a couple, or just bought a brand new hub as well. But since I got it up here, and I don't feel like putting all this in the garage and then taking a bus to the parts store. So anyways, this is what kind of damage it did. It's nothing crazy. I'm just going to sandpaper it up, try and get it as smooth as possible. So cleaned it up, sandpapered it, got it pretty good. There's still some scratches on there, but it's not going to get any better. Well, it could get better. I just don't feel like spending the time on it. So now the trick is to get this guy back in here like this, but if you see how there's two parts to it, you got to get it back in there without letting the bottom part separate. So you have to support it underneath something like this. Yeah, you know what I mean. Support it underneath like that, and then tap this guy in there really nice and easy. At least that's what I'm gonna do. Alright, so this all got thrown back on. What I did to get the hub back into the bearing was on the inside, I put the old bearing piece that I cut, you can see, a couple of washers on some thread stock, and I used axle nut 23 inch or 32 inch, the washer, and then I just cranked them together until the hub went back into the thing. There's absolutely no more play, so I'm glad to hear that, because, or I'm glad to feel that rather, because it definitely feels a lot better too. That means that it was actual bearing and not a different problem, but I don't know what else it would have been. Nothing else really does that. If it's ball joints loose, it might move a little bit down here, but it's not going to rock everywhere. So at least I know I got that done, back on. I'm just going to lower it and tighten it and call it a day on that piece as far as that goes. Yay, wheel bearing replacement done.